All right, so this melody is based upon two chords, which is a G minor and a D minor, which hit on the 1 and the 3. But for our intro, we wanted to make something a little bit more interesting and give it more of like a gospel feeling. So that's when we introduce certain passing chords and most importantly, the rhythm of the chords rather than the complexity of the chords. So with that being said, the first chord of our piano is going to be a G minor 7th. So once we have that chord, our next step is to give it a little bit more rhythm. So the technique I'm going to use is just playing kind of like the same notes inside of that chord. And then from there, I'm just going to be playing a little stab. And then that's going to lead me perfectly into the D minor. So it's like little embellishments, but at the same time, we're also not trying to do too much. We're just trying to give it a little bit more rhythm, especially for the intro, to give it like that soulful sample feeling. So after playing that first chord is just this chord, and then we're gonna take out the tension. And then from there, this is probably the most important part, and we're just gonna be playing that same chord, but we're gonna be adding this B flat, which is A sharp. We're just gonna be playing it super quick. So this is how the chord sounds. But what we're gonna do is we're just gonna hit it with like a little stab, just like that. And then right before we get into our D minor chord, since we just hit that little stab, we're going to be playing that chord for a little bit longer. So it's going to be this one. And then from there, that's going to lead us into our D minor chord. And for our D minor chord, we're just going to be playing a nice D minor 9 with the A at the top. So I'm going to play it in context and I'm going to play it super slow just so you can get an idea of how that little stabbing thing works. And that's leading us nicely into the D minor. So from there, in order to finish the chord progression, we're just going to be playing kind of like 3 chords going up. And one thing to keep in mind when we are doing this run up, we're trying to go to E flat major, which is going to be our next chord. So it's about trying to find ways to smoothly get into one chord to not sound so abrupt, and also using certain gospel techniques such as run ups. It's just giving the chords a lot more movement, even though it's not the most complicated chords. So I'm going to play you that little run up just so you can get an idea. It's going to sound slow, but you're going to see how it leads us nicely into that E flat major chord that we are trying to get to. Just leads us into that nice voicing that I typically do. Last but not least, we just have the same type of stabs that I've been doing throughout. And then we have our last chord, which is super simple. And we're just finishing it off with a D minor, as you could see, with the A at the bottom. So now that I've showed you this chord progression, I'm going to play it in context and I'm going to do some embellishments just so you could see how important it is to have those different variations in order to get that feeling. And that's pretty much it. So now I'm going to go into FL and you're going to be able to see exactly what I'm talking about. So as you can see in FL Studio, we have a really simple chord progression. It's just those parts that are kind of giving it a little bit of sauce, to be honest, and just making it sound a little bit more complicated than it actually is. So we have that nice G minor chord, like I showed you. And then as you could see, we're kind of using some of the same notes that are inside of the chord progression. We just added that D sharp just to give it a little bit more tension. And you could see having the notes close and just repeating is super important. We are just kind of giving it a little bit of movement, and the real sauce happens right here because we're not playing the exact same thing. We're just adding this note right here, and we also have it as a stab. After playing this nice stab, it's going into this like longer chord, and then it's falling perfectly into our D minor. So in theory, And then from there, we just kind of have like some notes from there. We just really pitched it up an octave, and we're just kind of adding this little embellishment. But this is where the magic happens, because this is where we have that F. It's really just two notes, but it's leading us nicely into this, which is just different passing chords. And as you can see, they don't even have a lot of notes, but it's allowing us to fall perfectly into the E flat major. So I'm going to let you listen so you can get a better idea. And then from there, we kind of have the same type of thing going on. As you can see, we're using very similar notes. We just have like a different little pattern, but it's basically the same thing, just with a slight variation. And then that's letting us fall into our D minor, but at the bottom as our root note, we are using this A. So this is still a D minor chord, but I just like the sound of it when it has that A at the bottom. So if you were curious, I'm actually layering two separate pianos. So we're using piano in blue, and we are also layering it with this Piano Tech piano. This is the preset right here. So all I did is just render it as one audio, and then I also put it in mono. And I really only have two effects on there. The tape mellify to kind of make it sound a little bit older, since I was going for like that vintage type of sample. And yes, we do have some of the noise on, as you could see. And then the next step was to get some type of reverb, just to kind of make it sound like it's coming from a room. So we're using this TR5 Sunset Studio. We also have it set to mono. I think the reverb is helping it alongside with the mellify. It's just making it sound ugly, but I think in a good way. So from there, my boy Mello sent me these vocals, and I just rendered it and try to mess with it a little bit. So the first effect that we have is this vintage verb. And then we have the shaper box, which is slightly panning it, not too much. And then I actually ended up putting this UAD, the waterfall rotary speaker. And I felt like it gave it that soulful vibe that I was looking for. And I think the key is for it to not sound like too modern. So you have to kind of make it sound a little bit ugly, but also having like super nice elements that have that sound. Because if you put the right effects and you don't have the right chords and you're not using the right techniques, you're not going to get that soulful feeling that you're looking for. And then we have this very specific EQ to take out some of the frequencies and some of the riffs that were just hitting a little bit too high. And then last but not least, we pulled up this tape mellify, and I also filtered it a little bit because I felt like it couldn't sound too good, to be honest. So from there, we just ended up pulling up this perk loop, which is just the most basic perk loop, but it was just to give the melody a little bit more of a soulful vibe. The whole intention behind this was for it to not sound like super clean. So I think we did a good job. And then from there, we just added the Rickenbacker bass. All we really did is just follow the root notes, and we just added one note right here. So nothing crazy, super simple. And I'm pretty sure I kept it the same. I just lowered the volume. This is what we had for the intro so far. So that's pretty much it for the first part. And if you remember, the whole chord progression is solely based on G minor and D minor. So the next step was to just add a pad, and I just simplified the chord progression so it doesn't have all of these passing chords, because the whole point was to make the first part soulful and then lead into something that sounded a lot more simpler, but a lot more like Drake. This is the chord progression, the simplified chord progression, and we just ended up finding some string pad thing just to help with the intro and just kind of like help it go up a little bit. And you're gonna see how just adding this little sound just kind of helped the intro be a little bit more intriguing. And all we added for that pad was just that little tape mellify, and we just put the mechanics and the flutter up so it doesn't sound too nice. From there, we knew where we wanted to go. That's when we just took some of the vocals and we just reversed it to lead into this section, because that was when we were going to really try to flip it. So for this reverse, it's just the vocal reverse, but we do have some effects. So we have this panning from Shaperbox. We have this distortion, and then we have this reverb, this delay, and then finally we are using this EQ to get rid of some of the high end. So this is how it's kind of like transitioning. So the first part was to go to Analog Lab, and I just grabbed this preset from my upcoming Analog Lab bank, and I just put some effects on it. So we're just taking out a lot of the high end and a lot of the low end. And then we have this reverb, and then we have the shaper box, which is just controlling the volume and also the panning. And the main reason why we did the volume is because it's just giving it a lot of movement. So from there, I just loaded up Diva, and I'm using the Sine Piano preset. We do have some other effects on there. So we have this flanger, this chorus, this tape mellow-fi again, an EQ to take out some of the mid frequencies. And then last but not least, we're just using this from FabFilter to fix everything after it's gone through all of these effects. And then I just grabbed my Prophet 10, and I really just copied the MIDI, which is the most simple MIDI, but I thought it just fit perfectly with what we were going for. So this is what we had for this section. All I felt that was missing was just some vocals. So as you could see, I just chopped up some vocals. Didn't do anything too crazy. I just put these vocals on a whole separate mixer, and I knew that I needed some sort of delay. So that's when I pulled up this NS1, and I'm just taking out some of the background noises. And then we have this delay, which is super important. And then this reverb, this shaper box, which is making it go left and right. Super important for the movement of the sample. And then at last, we have this SUV2, which is getting rid of some of the high frequencies that I didn't like, and just kind of made it sound a lot better. And then from there, I just ended up pulling up my synth, my Super Gemini. I just kind of played this pattern just to make it a little bit more interesting, since the bass sound was super interesting. I know this pattern kind of looks crazy for a bass, but it just fit everything so perfect, and especially those little runs that are kind of going down. It doesn't really make sense, but when you hear it in context, it just makes the world of a difference. So this is how it kind of sounded. So from there, Mello actually sent me those toms, and all he did is just use a Spinz 808, and he put it all the way up to C9. So this is how everything sounds together for this section right here, and you're gonna see how the bass kind of carries that whole section. So from there, it was about figuring out how we could kind of fall into like the main section where the drums are going to be. The next step was to low-key keep some of the same Prophet sounds that I had going throughout the sample. It's just a pad from my Prophet, and I believe we only took 2 from them. So that's pretty much it that really came out from my Prophet, and all I'm doing is just following the same chord progressions. So after using my Prophet, my next sound is this fake road sound from Analog Lab. My bank will be coming out soon. And then we also have that sound layered with this preset that I designed, which sounds super fire. So this is both of them together. And for the sound, that's kind of like, so, and all I did for those sounds is I just put this EQ to get rid of some of the highs. And then I have this chorus from Arteria. I'm using the main pad, and I also have it set to mono. One thing that you can commonly see throughout this whole project is the fact that I have a lot of volume and a lot of panning, and that's giving it like kind of like that kickstart type of effect. And then we have this flanger, and then the last plugin is just this reverb. And then from there, I just got this Ghost Glide, which is also another preset from my bank, and this is how it sounds. Just following the chord progression, to be honest. And then of course we pulled up this Surge XC, the classic strings preset. You've seen me use this multiple times with the same chain. So we have the shaper box, which is panning it, a fruity chorus, a flangus, an EQ, and then a stereo shaper to widen the sound a little bit more. So that's pretty much it for the layers. The only difference after layering all of these things is I took out the sound from the Prophet and I just put it for the second part just to add some variation. Now for the part that I think is super interesting, I just ended up layering some of the vocal riffs, and of course I have it ran through some effects. So we have the shaper box, this distortion, and then this delay. And then last but not least, we have this EQ. In order to make everything more interesting, what I ended up doing is just rendering out those vocals. These are the same exact vocals. The only difference is I just sped it up twice as fast. And after doing this, I just reversed the vocals. So that's all I did, but I do have a lot of effects. The first effects that I have is this EFX ambient. And as you could see, and one of the reasons that I had to render that audio is because I only have the demo, but I'm using this EFX ambient, and this is the preset. This plugin is just crazy. I don't even know, but they put crack in this plugin. And then we have this delay. Last but not least, the shaper box, which is focusing on that panning. And then we have this EQ to take out the highs and the lows. This is what we got from it. It just gave it that texture that it needed, and I just really chopped it up. So nothing super crazy, but altogether it kind of made sense, especially when I added it with those vocals that have that delay to it. And to be honest, there's not really any thought when doing those type of things. It's just kind of by ear and just doing like the most random stuff. And then just to finish everything off, I just went to Trillion and I pulled up this Prophet unison bass. And then I'm pretty sure I'm just layering it with analog lab bass, which is this bass right here. Altogether, this is what we had for this section. So it's basically the same thing. And then from there, we were trying to find ways to make it a little bit more interesting. So we just stripped down the sample to about this pad and just some of the vocals. And then we also brought in these pads from here. So we just kind of stripped it down just to make it a little bit interesting. And that was pretty much it. And then we just brought back that crazy bass. And that was pretty much it. So this is how it transitions from this section into this section. And honestly, that's pretty much it. As you can see, this melody is not super complicated. I just think it just has the nice elements that give it that vibe that we were going for. But I think the highlight of the melody is definitely that bass that we have going on, and also the vocals. Other than that, it's not complicated. I just think we just use the right things at the right time. So now I'm going to pull up the other FLP that has the drums, because I think the drums are a little interesting, and you're going to see how we utilize that 808, that C9 808, and we just kind of used it as our snare. So what I ended up doing is just rendering this as like a snare, to be honest, and I just have it going throughout the whole sample. But the only thing that I did is just kind of cut it out just for this part right here. So this is what we had with the sample. And then I just put a kick. And then this is when I went to the 808. And I think the thing that I did that was a little bit interesting compared to my other beats is I just kind of added some slides, and I just utilized the slides in a way that I wouldn't normally. It's just a pretty basic patterns, but throughout the end and during the middle for this part, we just have this slide going on right here. That was pretty much it. But what I did do is I just copied over the pattern and I made it unique. And in order to go into the sample, like for the drop, we just have this leading us into the drums. So that's pretty much it for this beat. And now I'm going to play you the whole beat, and you're going to be able to hear how it kind of goes into it. But thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something. This is a simple beat, but I think the vibe is just right.